Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou ngā manahiri. No mai, haere mai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to this space made sacred over the last 115 years by Auckland Unitarians. Welcome here whether you have come with heart full or heart empty, with spirits high or low, rested or tired, hopeful or despairing. Welcome here whether you have come out of habit, conviction, loneliness, curiosity, or no place to go on Queen's birthday. You belong here because you are here, and all that you have and all that you are is welcome here. This morning, we are together the heartbeat of this congregation. We especially welcome you if you're a guest or visitor, just passing through, or someone seeking a spiritual home. My opening words are by the author of The Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. They are brief, but to the point of our worship this morning. If you want to build a ship, don't herd people together to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. We light this chalice that it might bless the path on which you travel. Bless the body that carries you upon it. Bless your heart that has heard the call. Bless your mind that discerns the way. Bless the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. I'm not a fan of turning nouns into verbs, so I have an internal resistance to using the word visioning. But I know it describes a distinct reality. Before beginning a test, I'm sure the All Blacks spent some time visioning on how they will make their winning tries. I'm sure Roger Federer visions how his serve will ace his opponent, and Lydia Ko sees in her mind's eye a vision of where her chip shot will land on the green. I know I spend time visioning on how I want Sunday service to go. I know visioning doesn't guarantee the intended result. It has been known to happen that the All Blacks lose. Federer double faults, Ko ends up in a bunker, and the Sunday service doesn't faintly resemble the plan. But without visioning, those outcomes would be the rule, not the exception. I'm reminded of the importance of visioning every time I cross the harbor bridge on my Vespa. It is tempting to take in the spectacular views of the skyline and the harbor, but that's an invitation to disaster. The key to getting where you want to go safely on a two-wheel vehicle is to remember that where you're looking is where you will go. Visioning gets us to our goal. It keeps us from being distracted. Now, distraction does have certain uses. As a puppy, Waldo loves to chew. He has plenty of chew toys, but he prefers a stick he found outside and Rachel's slippers. Fortunately, he is easily distracted from enjoying his forbidden fruit by almost anything that squeaks. It turns out we are not so different from puppies. We are quite good at distracting ourselves from staying focused on future outcomes, especially if we find getting there difficult or seemingly unachievable. Perhaps it is fear of the change required to accomplish it that makes distraction enticing. This probably won't be news to many of you. Churches are particularly good at distracting themselves. The equivalent of a squeaky toy for them is adiaphora. I just love that word. Adiaphora. Say it with me. Adiaphora. It is a Greek word that means all things unnecessary for salvation. All things unnecessary for salvation. My favorite example of adiaphora is that prior to the American Civil War, when debate was raging about slavery in the rest of society, Episcopalians were fighting each other over whether or not it was right to decorate the altar with candles and flowers. Debating this practice was a convenient squeaky toy to distract them from taking a stand on the slavery issue or to do anything about an evil institution that to this day has incredibly destructive consequences in human terms. Churches today still have plenty of other squeaky toys. Worrying about the budget and seeking growth are two of many. Focusing on finances is particularly good adiaphora because it sounds so reasonable. Of course we have to be responsible stewards of our resources, but it becomes adiaphora when we forget why we have accumulated the resources. Having resources isn't the church's mission, but fear can stop us from acting in faith and generosity to use them to accomplish our mission. When we are more focused inward on our needs, we are succumbing to distraction. Seeking growth is another major distraction. There is a whole body of literature devoted to church growth. Being a self-proclaimed expert on church growth is a cottage industry reaping in millions. At a time when religious institutions are in decline, church boards are willing to place bets, even though the odds are low, on these charlatans in hopes of reversing their fortunes. There are a number of problems with focusing on growth, besides it not working. Growth is adiaphora. It is inward looking. We need more pledges to meet the budget. That means we have to grow. The congregation is getting older, so we need more volunteers to sit on committees, help on Sunday morning, teach our children, take care of the building, run the canvas, organize fundraisers, and on and on. That means we have to grow. But how many of you would join an organization of any kind just because they want you to give them money and do their chores? No matter how essential those chores may be to that organization's smooth running. The problem with growth is it isn't the church's mission. The church's mission is out there, not in here. Always has been, always will be. Even if we were to call ourselves a meeting house, it would still be true. The reason is while we often connote the word church with a building or an institution, it began as neither. It began as people who cared for others, whether or not they were members of their community. The Greek New Testament calls these communities ecclesia, what we would later translate as church. They were people prepared to share all that they had to make the world a better place than they found it. They lived lives in opposition to the status quo. Their mission was purely and simply transformation. Transformation of who they were and the world around them. Their vision was to turn the world's accepted order upside down, where the last would be first, where love replaced power. This was an incredibly radical mission, and it still is. Their numbers grew as the poor, the widow, the slave, the prisoner, the ill, the peacemakers were drawn to a community committed to creating this kind of world. That made them a threat to those still benefiting from the old order. The Emperor Constantine co-opted them with adiaphora. He not only made them legal, he made them the state religion. Soon they were concerned more with establishing hierarchies, accumulating power, building religious versions of palaces, codified belief into creeds that maintained power, and working hand in glove with the oppressor than with those who were last. But for a brief few centuries, a little like Camelot, the church, the ecclesia, understood its mission was to transform. But what transformation was being sought? It is based on a story in the Gospel of John, when the night before he was crucified, following the Last Supper, Jesus stripped and proceeded to wash the feet of his disciples. They were horrified by their master's action because only a servant washed the feet of others. When Jesus was finished, he put his clothes back on and had this to say to those who followed him. Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. While the story is not historical, and nothing Jesus said in John's gospel is authentic to him, it records the early church's experience of the kind of leader Jesus was, a servant leader. However, it is important to note that Jesus, while he did not feel he was better than his disciples, he was not serving his disciples. He was serving the values they held in common. He wasn't telling his disciples to enslave themselves to others' happiness or desires, but to serve the community's mission. If you're going to turn the world topsy-turvy, you need to transform yourself into a leader who is a servant first and always. In 1970, Robert K. Greenleaf expanded on this idea of leadership in an essay that became a classic, The Servant as Leader. What I find most intriguing in this essay that has influenced much of my ministry is that Greenleaf was not a theologian or even remotely associated with religious institutions. He worked initially digging post holes as a common laborer for AT&T, at the time one of the largest corporations in the world. It was not long before he was tapped for formal management training. He would hold numerous other positions before he retired from AT&T after 35 years. He spent his retirement as a consultant to large institutions, helping them to become more effective in achieving their mission from what he learned in his corporate work. He later founded an institute to further the idea of servant leadership. I don't know how much Jesus' example influenced his thinking. He doesn't say. What he does say is that a character in Hermann Hesse's Journey to the East sparked his intuition. It's a story of a band of men on a mythical journey. The central figure of the story is Leo. Actually, it's perfect. Who accompanies the party as the servant. Leo does the menial chores, waits on the other men, carries the water. He also sustains them with his spirit and song. God, this is so you, Leo. Leo, the servant, is a person of extraordinary presence. All goes well on the journey until Leo disappears. Then, very quickly, the group falls into disarray and the journey is abandoned. They could not make it without the servant, Leo. One of the party, many years after wandering, found Leo and is taken into the religion. I'm going to start that paragraph again. One of the party, after many years of wandering, finds Leo and is taken into the religious order which had sponsored the journey. There he discovers that Leo, whom he had known as a servant, was in fact the head of the order, its guiding spirit, a great and noble leader. From his experiences, AT&T, and reflection on Leo, Greenleaf became committed to stimulating thought and action for building a better, more caring society. He concluded that true leadership is serving others, and success in leadership emerges from those whose primary motivation is a deep desire to help others. They place the highest premium on serving others rather than being commanding, controlling, self-serving individuals. The characteristics of servant leaders are these: listening, empathy, healing, awareness, persuasion, conceptualization, foresight, stewardship, commitment to the growth of the people, and building community. Begin with listening because this is the initial action that demonstrates you put the values of others first. Empathy is stronger than sympathy as you put yourself in the sandals of others. Heal and you shall be aware. Persuade, you need to work together. Conceptualize how you can help. Then you can foresee utilizing your stewardship and succeed in commitment to the growth of people and building community. To be successful leaders, you must be able to follow. So back to the vision I hold in my mind's eye. My vision of our future. The one I hope to see is a congregation that has chosen to become servant leaders inside and outside these walls, prepared to be servant followers of one another. Success isn't assured. It isn't easy. Change is required. There are lots of obstacles. There are plenty of distractions to sidetrack us along the way. But if we can envision it together and support each other along the way, we might actually do our bit to turn the world topsy-turvy. A world where our 7 principles are the rule and not the exception. For our meditation, I simply want you to get comfortable, close your eyes, look with inner vision, and ask, What is your vision of our future? My closing words are by Loretta Williams. We, bearers of the dream, affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for that community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is struggle yet ahead, yet we know that in the struggle is the hope for the future. We affirm that we are co-creators of the future, not passive pawns. And we stand united in affirmation of our hope and vision of a just and inclusive society. We affirm the unity of all persons. We affirm brotherhood and sisterhood that allows us to touch upon each other's humanity. We affirm a unity that opens our eyes, ears, and hearts to see the different but common forms of oppression, suffering, and pain. Yet we are one in the image of the divine, and we celebrate our hopes for human unity. Within ourselves and within the gathered community, we will discover the strength not to hide in indifference, affirming that hope, publicly expressed, energizes and enables us to move forward. Together we pledge action to transcend barriers, be they racial, political, economic, social, or religious. We pledge to make our tomorrows become our todays.